All right, welcome everyone to another session of Lisan Lab, which I'm really, I like to just start off by saying Bismillah and welcome to everyone and the idea of the Lisan Lab, but this has become more casual for me, really just kind of like hanging out um, while we explore the app and some of these concepts. So I was just talking with Irvina about this route. For Al Aziz, which we talked about weeks ago, and then also Al Mu'izz, which is kind of around where we are in the 99 names right now. Yeah, so I was just kind of talking about how we take a look at the etymology, the semantic field, try and find something that kind of grounds the idea. So, like, how do we know what Izza is? How do we know what Al Aziz means? Um, and then also, like, how do we understand the relationship between that word and other words in the semantic field? So like Ardun Izaz is what's highlighted here as hard ground. And so the conversation went from this point on to like a lot of different directions, but generally like Al Aziz is the one that's impenetrable, right? The one that you can rely on, and in the sense that nothing will overcome him, right? Nothing will penetrate him. Nothing will defeat him. And we also related it, I remember, to Aziz has the same morphological pattern as like Habib, and they're often used similarly too. So you can say like Ya Habibi, right? But you can also say Ya Azizi, right? And it has similar kind of idea, right? That like the person that you love the most or someone that's dear to you. Um, I mean, you can love them for different reasons. And I think we started talking about love and what love means in to different people. That was, I think, part of the conversation when we talked about um, lover, um, Habib, and Aziz. Yeah, so that's a nice quick recap. Zanira, I know you said Al Mu'izz is your favorite name, so do you have anything that you want to add to this subject of Izza again? I was saying that raf and khafd and raf, so lowering and raising, which we kind of discussed in the past couple of weeks in the previous two names. Those are more kind of physical, lowering and hiring, whereas mu'izz and mudhil are more in the abstract, more um, in the kind of status realm or social realm instead of the physical realm. But all in all four names are very similar conceptually. They're very see all they're all really kind of similar. Well, one thing I was kind of thinking about was how Aziza is a little bit older. We could argue um, in the language than some of the other words. But but yeah, I mean, in the past we've talked at length. It's easy. You can see from the graph that we can jump from one word to another, or one idea to another very quickly. Um, but there's no impetus to continue that all the time. So if the session is just simply like, hey, look at this word, it refers to lowness, right, or upness, right? Because in a way you cannot talk about lowness without inadvertently or in another um, by corollary talk about uh, highness, right? So you know and like I said, some of these ideas can be very intuitive, so there might not be a lot that we have to say about them. um, so yeah, we don't always have to go for 4 hours is all I'm trying to say. But yeah, I'll open it up here to see if anybody has any thoughts that they want to add, or any questions or curiosities, anything we didn't say about Aziz when we talked about this route months ago now. Um, please.
So sorry, I was wondering if I don't know when I mentioned this, but you mentioned this originally, Ahmed, that Aziz and Hakim is like the most frequent collocation in the Quran. But then you said you're not. I mean, I remember you mentioning it, but then you said you'll have to, yeah, you'll have to have the GPT check or something.
Oh, I so maybe we can find it in the report.
So for me,
For Aziz, that it could be there. I can find that though. I think Arena also had something she wanted to say, or somebody raised a hand. I guess we didn't. I guess I don't have a report for Aziz. Um, it's probably in the chat, but I can't check right now. Actually, that's something that I've been working on.
I just saw the word goat there, and it was very interesting. And I
Oh,
know that goats go quite, like they climb quite high.
yeah. Let's see. Sometimes,
oh my god, especially mountain goats. And I think Omar, you were saying that
yeah, go.
Azaz is the land on top of the mountain, the hard land at the top of the mountain.
Okay, so this is a mistake. So yeah, so this is why this app is still in development. But it does allow me to show off one of these features. Sorry, what were you saying, Zinir, about goats?
I think you said that Azaz is the land on top of the hard land on top
Yeah,
of the
Ardun
mountain,
Azaz,
right?
Ardun Azaz, yeah, or it's just like desolate land or land that's kind of far away. So yeah, this a lot of these English glosses are
Oh, that's
generated.
interesting. It says in Urdu, ऐसी इंसान शदीद बीमारी की हालत में है. What ऐसी? It's first of all, it's grammatically incorrect. It will be
Yeah,
ऐसा इंसान. But then it says, is that what it means? Mu'azziz al-marad? Someone who's really sick in Arabic.
uh,
The
this it looks
transliteration.
like no, this is
فلان
some kind
معزز
of
المرض.
yeah, this looks like some kind of mistake where like they translated the next word or something like that. Like they're all shifted one or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. But I mean the meaning of this word should not be goat. That was the AI failing to get I mean like it recognized it because Maza is another this is not Maza. This is I guess I don't know if Maza is the same root. I don't think so. I think Maza is like Ma'aza. Um, yeah, anyway, sorry for the confusion, but good eye. Because um, but yeah, so this is another part of the what I've been working on lately, which is a data validation system. So this should be corrected to like cause of uh, mites or something like that. Um, so yeah, you can help out with that if you're interested. Um, you can reach out. Was there anything else here you're saying here?
Yeah, I was wondering if it has to do with illness. Because actually it does say here, معزاز لمرض. معزاز فلان معزاز مرض.
Um, as
معزاز.
um,
Seriously ill. It's right above firm. Pink, yeah.
all right. Um, yeah, that's a very rare form. I'm not sure what Mazaz. Mazaz be like fi'lal. It's a strange form for sure. But I mean, it reminds me of ulul azm, right? How we say like in Arabic, uh, the prophets who are tested the most. They're called. They have that title of ulul azm. Those of Azm, and Azm is a different root here because it's basically you're just adding a meme to the end of it. But um, and Azm means like determination, I think, or that might be the best translation.
Can it mean decision?
Azm, yeah, azm can be like a decision that you make with determination. Maybe persistence is also, or perseverance is maybe a better translation for azm.
Yeah, because this reminds me of something we were talking about when we were speaking about Islamia. And because I've been reading Surah Baqarah recently, and in Surah Al Baqarah, Allah says, فَإِنْ عَزَمُوا الطَّلَاقَ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ. If they have decided to get divorced, then Allah is Sami'un Alim. And so, or if they are determined to get a divorce. So then, yeah, I just thought it's so interesting. It's like, it's not, saying it out loud, it's a decision. But Allah, as Samir, hears even our decisions. Like, that's something that's heard. Um, yeah, and I was actually wondering if Azam has to do with Aziz because they kind of have, similar vibes as well.
Well, last time I brought this up, you don't believe in these. I'm just kidding. I mean, well, so you can do a partial search here, right? So if we just do,
Believe in
instead,
what? In what's it
I mean,
called?
anagrams. So it's related to the
That's not an
anagrams.
anagram.
It's related to it, right? Because you're shuffling around the letters to a degree. Because like, what if
Where is
you
it
did?
shuffling? It's literally both the first two letters are the same. The second one is just.
But
I'm
then
sorry,
what
the
if
third is.
But then what if you like, what if you just move the first two letters to the end? You know, there's not much difference. So at a glance here, Azr, Azf, Azf is like to play like an instrument. I know. Um, Azl is like to move. Azm, we are just talking about determination. Yeah. Azu, Azi. Not sure about what these mean,
Oh,
but
there's another camel there. The old she camel.
yeah, there's a joke that I heard from a friend of mine recently. There's like every root in Arabic has its meaning, its opposite meaning, something to do with a camel, and something so obscene that you have to check another dictionary to make sure it's there.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
so I
for
mean,
me, like Azam is like kind of similar to Aziz because it's like, like being invincible or like being immovable, right? Like the earth that's impenetrable. And like when you are determined, you are like that. Like that means you're not gonna move, you're not gonna basically be like you're not going to waver. That's what like Azim is. And in another place, Allah tells Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam about like taking, shower home fil amr to take advice from the Sahaba and the mu'mineen. And then he says, فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. That when you have made a decision and when you are determined, then put your trust in Allah. And I think that's so important because a lot of times people are just like think tawakkul is just like going with the flow, it's just vibes. But it's actually before that there's a step. Before that you need to be determined about like where you're going. And then you need to,
yeah, I mean, I
put your trust
definitely
in Allah.
think that there's a relationship, with Izza and Azm. I definitely think meme is one of those letters actually that helps you kind of understand partial roots or other sounds really well, because meme is often to do with like materialness or like the earth or like physical reality. um that's why like the meme masdars in Arabic, um like masdar mimi we say, right? So like marhama or like martaba or like ma'zaba, here we see like those usually indicate like that's the form of the place, right? Like um a place or a cause, or instrument. Those are morphological forms that indicate that kind of thing. Like you say madrasa, for example, from darasa. Madrasa is the place of darasa, of the place of teaching. Mm, maktaba, the place of kataba, the place of kutub, right? But you can also think of it as like instrumentality. Like when we say like fataha, open, and then you have miftah is um is a key, um, or misbah is um, that would give that like a lamp, which gives light, which I guess comes from subah. Never thought about that before. Yeah, and I think you can see here, like, I mean, I think there's another one here, like,
What's
has,
Ariana?
huh?
It says Ariana in one of the things.
Oh, I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, sometimes Lane just tells you to go look at another word. So, I, it's just, yeah.
In
As,
Arabic, it says "Bahut
yeah.
sabir," very patient. Oh, sorry, in Urdu, I meant. Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, in a couple of years, all this data will be clean. I mean, it's just the English glosses that are bad. And if we really wanted to see what that meant.
Oh, oh, this is like what Luqman, I think. Luqman's advice. واصبر على ما أصابك إن ذلك من عزم الأمور. Right? So that's why it's like patience.
Say that again?
Um, in Surah Luqman, like
Yeah.
some part of the advice that he gives, I think, to his son is like, واصبر على ما أصابك إن ذلك من عزم الأمور. Be patient upon whatever befalls you. That's part of azm.
Yeah, I'm sure if we looked at all of these roots, we would find some kind of like, like asb as, is maybe the furthest away from the sense of like strong and, mighty, right? Asb means to abandon here, it looks like. But it could have that sense of like greatness to it as well, right? Like, or intensity. But Azm, yeah, I think captures it the most in the sense of in the most material kind of sense with that meme sound again. Asf is interesting. Asf is normally used for like playing something, like playing music. But it looks like it can, in its base meaning, it can mean to abstain, as if on shay. So again, there's that other frame, right? So like one thing I always try to do is kind of reduce things to like these fundamental frames, and a lot of times it's as simple as like abstract, concrete. In the past couple of weeks, it's high and low, right? That's the idea. Um, but then there's also like contraction and expansion, which we talked about a couple of weeks before. There's also separation and union, which we also find very, very often, um, especially with like the older words and simpler, shorter words. So here you can kind of get that sense here. Azafa, in its base sense, can mean to like turn away from something or separate from something else, and that's something I was trying to talk about. I think, I mean, that's something I try to talk about often with the names is that like, well, what kind of frame can we see it in? And usually it's a union. That's like usually one of the simplest frames is Allah's so far, at least in like the 20 or so names. But there are a few names where there is a sense of like separation actually. Qudus was the first one that we went to because that means in its base meaning, qadasa means to go far away, right? So the idea of holiness is grounded or paired with the idea of like being far away from something. And that's an idea that comes up very often, you know, in in the understanding of the 99 names in the Quran, that we call it tanzih, right? The idea of like separating something from everything else because of its superiority and specialness. So yeah, I think this is. I think I said this a couple of times and I forgot about it, but I think this is a good case for this being one of those roots where there is one of the fundamental frames or fundamental ideas is separation. Yeah.
What if there's like this is just reminding me of like another possible frame, like steadiness. versus movement or flow.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. It I think it's really close to like expansion and contraction, like qabd and bust. But because you never really come across like nothingness or like complete lack of movement in language.
No, but I meant steadiness. So there's like Mateen, there's, this Aziz that's like steady, that's like immovable.
Mm, yeah, yeah, that's another frame. I mean, I think the more common frame too that we don't talk about very often um, is the win loss, and that's like the way I kind of see it is that like cutting and union separation, that's like the most micro, and then at the most macro level, right, is we have like the fate of our lives, the fate of everything, which is winning or losing. Do we win or do we lose? Do we gotta make it to heaven or hell? um and I think you can kind of think of heaven and hell as also like in its most fundamental union and separation from Allah, like being close to Allah is heaven, being far away from Allah is hell. um so I think all the names really can be framed that way as well. So Aziz, obviously is like, you know even in the sense of like that we talked about, right, as being impenetrable, unstoppable, that rock that you can rely on. Aziz there is very like winning, right, like you're on the side of the winner there, right? Whereas in these other names, which is something that we don't talk about that much, we talked about it a couple times in the first couple of sessions, but I think, I don't know, I guess you build a taste for it. I'm curious about people that, we have Ammar here, who is more native Arab speaker than I am, and then I think we have non-native Arabic speakers, or maybe people who are not as familiar with these ideas. What is it like? What is it? How does it strike you, or how do you understand the idea of like Allah having these names that we associate pretty generally negatively, right? The first one that we came across that was like that was Jabbar, right? And we kind of talked about how that's used colloquially, very negatively, at least in modern colloquial Arabic, right? It means somebody who's ruthless, and that meaning. What do you mean, Maham? Uh,
I'm just I'm just saying like skill issue, like if we associate like these things negatively, because I feel like that's what I've learned and what I've like realized and what I've experienced is even the Jalal names, like there's usually like a depth of beauty even behind the Jalal. Like for the reason of that Jalal being in place, or the fact that like you in some cases like with Jabbar, I feel like the Jalal is really like it's a stretch to kind of put it there because like the name itself or like how Allah interacts with us through that name so beautiful that it's just like it's kind of like like we categorize things and we pigeonhole things for our own sake for the sake of our understanding, but that's kind of just like it's quite limited, and in a way like we start to limit Allah because of these things as well. So it's just like a big skill issue. Like
yeah, no, yeah. I mean, but it's also like what we're taught. It's also like preconceived notion. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with like leaning towards one, you know, like in some ways Jabbar is really scary, but in a lot of ways it's like you know not, and all of the names have that sort of quality, I think. So it's it's good, I think, to try and look at both aspects, like the Jalali and the Jamali. Um, uh, and sometimes it's more subtle. These past couple of names, or these four in particular, right? You have Khafid, right? Like very Jalali, right? Like it's hard to see the Jamal in it, right? At least that, like, you just wouldn't associate it with that. Same thing with Mudhil, right? And then you also it's interesting to note that we have that ABBA structure, خافض رافع معز مذل, ABBA structure in the list, which I guess is probably not by accident. But it's an age-old question too, of like, well, how is God all merciful if people go to hell, if these bad things happen? And that's an epistemological question, right? We're claiming that we have more knowledge than we do. But in in a really simplistic sense, the way I've kind of always thought about it too is that, like, you disliking something is part of you loving its opposite in a way, right? So, like, if God didn't punish those who rejected him, it would be less love than for it wouldn't be fair to those that did show love to him, right? That did believe in him. So yeah, that's a big tangent. Any other thoughts?
One other way to like make sense of it, although we don't need to make sense of God, and God is not necessarily going to make sense to us because our sense, or like our mind, isn't at that level. But it reminds me of the ayah where Allah says, قُلِ اللَّهُمَّ مَالِكَ الْمُلْكِ تُؤْتِي الْمُلْكَ مَنْ تَشَاءُ وَتَنْزِعُ الْمُلْكَ مِمَّنْ تَشَاءُ وَتُعِزُّ مَنْ تَشَاءُ وَتُذِلُّ مَنْ تَشَاءُ بِيَدِكَ الْخَيْرُ إِنَّكَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. That say, Allah, the owner of all dominion, you give your mulk, I don't want to say sovereignty, but like, yeah, you give ownership to whoever you wish and you take it away from whoever you wish, and you give izzah to whomever you wish, and you give dhillah to whomever you wish, or you honor whomever you wish and you dishonor whomever you wish.
Mhm.
بيدك الخير. All good is in your hand and you are able to do all things. And so then it reminds me of, like on the internet, there's like conversations sometimes about when people are really rich and they're like buying stuff that's, let's say, other people think is not justified, almost like if they're buying an Hermes bag, or people are like, people are dying, why are you buying that, you should do such and such. And then there's people who will defend that, saying that but that's their money, they own that money, they can do whatever they want with it. And that's actually what applies to God, because God, Malik al-Mulk means the owner, or like, the possessor of everything that is owned. And so then we kind of intuitively understand that an owner can do whatever they want with what they own, and they're not answerable to anyone else. We are answerable, of course, because we don't actually own anything. So it doesn't apply to, israf and stuff like that. But in God's case, if God were actually to do, what we think of as injustice, he can do that. Like, I mean, he can, as in no one's going to stop him, but I meant he also like has the kind of, I don't want to say justification, but it kind of, yeah, like for the sake of argument, like he's justified in doing that because that's like we're his, like I think Ibrahim alayhi salam or someone says that in the Quran, like if you forgive them, then one of the Rasul, they say that if you forgive them, then you are of course, like Rahim. But if you punish them, فَإِنَّهُمْ عِبَادِكَ, they're your slaves. So it's like you can do whatever you want. And in another place, Allah says, if Allah wished, in Surah Al-Baqarah, if Allah wished, they would not have fought each other. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَفْعَلُ مَا يُرِيدُ. But Allah does whatever Allah wants. And I think that is actually the real like Jalali stuff, which we kind of can't really, like, yeah, I
But
don't
it's
know. It's
also
very jarring.
about that in
Yeah.
terms of the fact that Allah has like complete control, and the fact that you're right, like he can do whatever he wills because he's Allah, right? Like it's everything belongs to him and everything is returning to him, and everything, like nothing would exist if it weren't for his will. So everything kind of owes the entire itself through him, whether or not it even realizes him. So and in that we think that like, yeah, like Allah can do whatever he wants. If he wants to like humiliate a people or a person or whatever, he can do that. If he wants to bring about like destruction or like an extinction event or whatever, he can. Like, he doesn't have to justify that, because it's his will. But the thing is, like, reading the Quran and kind of seeing the way that Allah organizes things, like, there's such hikmah, and that's where, like, kind of Allah's, I guess, like, greatness comes in, where it's like he can do anything, but you realize time and time again that Allah is not cruel, and he's not like, he doesn't do things that are like just cause, like, even if it's something that's very scary. And that's why I think why I struggle to like kind of feel that fear and that kind of thing, like, kind of even to see the Jalali stuff in a way that is like that induces straight fear. Like, I understand that Allah can make anything come about, and the fact that human beings do earn a lot of like wrath upon themselves through like certain actions and everything, but it's all, even that is like his rahmah. Because even things like when you look at like an of that is like if you look at something like the capital punishment for someone who steals, it's like their right hand needs to be cut off. But it's because there's something that is cleansing through that. Like, it's like cut off their right hand, and then after that, leave them alone. Like, you don't have to like be best friends with them, but you're also not allowed to like torment them or to keep like reminding them of their crime and stuff like that after that. Like, you don't have to fraternize with them, but you can't torment them after that. Like, they've paid their due once you like enacted that punishment on them, and it's out of like, it's like it's something that can't be avoided. Like, it needs to be done, but it's for the best for that person. Because if you don't do it, then there's something in their soul that is being cleansed. So then in the akhirah, like, their punishment will be more severe. So like, these kinds of things, it's kind of like the way that Allah has laid out the cosmos is like, it's almost like I picture like a giant abacus, right? And he's kind of like balancing all the like numbers and all the like beads here and there. And so it's all according to his perfect like calculation. So he knows what's needed. And so even the things that he does bring about that to us are bad or scary, like, there's always hikmah and ultimately love and ultimately like a greater rahmah behind it, because it's like even the bad that he does allow to come on us, and no bad can ever be attributed to him, but even like what he does allow that is bad to us, like, it's kind of sparing you from like something worse later, be that in this world or in the next and stuff like that. And so it's kind of like, even like when you, the example that you just gave of like, ya Allah, if you forgive them, then you are the most merciful, but if you don't, then they're your servants. And it's like Allah knows what would be best for them, so he could forgive them. Like, it's not hard for him. In fact, like, that's closer to like his sunnah, is like is to forgive, like, even when someone on paper doesn't deserve it. But then if he does decide to kind of let them feel his jalal, that would be more merciful for them according to his perfect hikmah. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, this is the iconic ayah. قُلِ اللَّهُمَّ مَالِكَ الْمُلْكِ. It's an interesting,
Irvina has her hand up.
right?
Irvina,
Yeah,
we just interrupt each other. You don't have to be putting
Polite.
your hand up.
No, I just am used to it. Anyways, yeah, I wanted to connect it with our conversation in Ibn Arabi sessions, and that the names of Allah have a hierarchy in a way. And if
yeah,
and
yeah,
if I put it in this way, like in a human, if I express something about the nature of God in human words, I might have said that God has a personality in a way. He has a character and he has a conscience in a way, because even in some of hadiths and the ayats, it says that my mercy, um, my mercy is greater than my anger. Or I really love the dua of the Prophet alayhi salam when he says, I seek refuge in you from you. So basically, in a way, seeking refuge from the Jalali names to the Jamali names. And an image just came to me while you were discussing this, because Anira, you said he has the capability of being unjust. Yes, in a way, because, and it is like the mother and the child. And of course, the mother has the power to slap the child and kill the child. However, on the other hand, the mother doesn't have that capability. Not that I'm limiting God, but God Himself has said, I am not unjust in a way, because He has a name that somehow defines His characteristics. So if He says, I am just, then it means that He is not unjust, because He has decided it upon Himself. So it's His will, like that. Not that He doesn't have the power to do so. So this is how I would explain this issue. Yeah, but there are lots of paradoxes with Him. So.
Another way I
Sorry,
thought
yeah,
about
I didn't say that like you can be unjust, but the thing is, what does it mean to be just? That's the question. Because like some things might seem unjust to us, right? And so there's like a whole thing called, I think, theodicy, to like justify basically like where theologians sit and discuss like why is God allowing this when it is unjust, like why is God allowing genocide when it is, to us it seems unjust. And then it's like in disability studies, this thing, why does God allow children to be disabled, why does God allow children to have cancer, why does God allow animals to get to suffer, why does God allow all of these things. And then we don't understand it. So some of the like there's many justifications that theologians have come up with. I personally studied animals, so like that theodicy. So one of the justifications was from, I think his name is Qadi Abdul Jabbar. He's a Mu'tazili theologian, and he said that something would be unjust if it is like inflicting suffering upon someone would be unjust if it is not preceded by something wrong, like the case that Maha mentioned about someone stealing. That's not unjust because that person stole, so it was preceded by something wrong, or it is not succeeded by someone by giving them something good. So, for example, if someone's suffering, people that are suffering here, they will be rewarded in Jannah, so that's not unjust. But these are our ways of understanding, right? Injustice. But one of the things that one of my teachers taught us is that um this is actually from the Quran, but I just never like put two and two together. In the Quran, Allah says, لَأَمْلَأَنَّ جَهَنَّمَ, that I will fill Jahannam up with human beings and jinn. Okay, so that means jinn go to hell. But nowhere in the Quran does it say that jinn go to heaven. And jinn apparently have free will because we have, they're the thaqalain. We have free will and jinn have free will. Is that just or unjust? Because they're going to get punished for their sins, but they're apparently not going to Jannah. And they live with free will, unlike,
This means that,
non-human
sorry
animals.
to interrupt, this means
Yeah,
that
sorry.
they automatically use their free will in such a way that would send them to Jannah. Like, this is the
No, Mara,
automatic conclusion.
the Muslim jinn too. Like they're good jinn that came to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and like, they're mentioned in the Quran that they listen to the Quran and stuff. I mean, I don't know. Are you saying they're all definitely bad?
No, but I assume that, like, your example of listening to the Quran would imply again that if they go either way to Jahannam, is that it's not enough. I'm just using the data you gave. I'm trying to make sense out of it. What else would it be?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't. Yeah, no, exactly. Irving is right. We don't know that they won't go to Jannah, but it doesn't say anywhere, And so, why would God say that they are going to go to Jahannam for sure, but they're not going to go? We don't know that they're going to go to Jannah. But yeah, but anyway, based on that data, it seems unfair to us, right? But maybe God, I don't know, for whatever reason, it can be just, and I'm not going to understand that now. But then God is still just. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, but it seems unjust to us, right? It's like you're going to reward somebody, you're going to punish somebody for doing. So there's a being that has free will, but he does good. He's not rewarded, but he does evil, then he is punished. That seems like, like logically that seems unjust. But I'm saying it's not unjust because those are our definitions of injustice. And so we don't know when God says he's Hakim al-Adil, what does that mean? Like, what does that actually mean in, specific cases? We don't know. And it can seem, and it does, many things seem unjust to us. Like so many things seem unjust to us. But they're not. Because first of all, the names, that means he is necessarily just. Mara, sorry, yeah, I also wanted to say something. You know what? I don't know if anyone has anything to add on this, but I actually wanted to talk about the names that we were going to talk about. Rafi and Maurice.
Yeah, I would like to add that. So I think that the rule is from the Hadith Qudusi that Allah حرمت الظلم على نفسي. So Allah forbidden injustice upon himself. So that's the rule that for us as Muslims we believe in, right? Like even that itself, Allah put it as a rule, and that was expressed through the Hadith Qudusi when Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam speaks in about Allah directly. So I think that that's the rule. There is no injustice whatsoever in a way that Allah Himself put it as a rule for Himself, and that's just a way to put it in a form that we can understand. Allah ala kulli shay'in qadir. Allah can do whatever Allah wants, and part of that will that Allah showed us that He made that rule, that He forbidden injustice for Himself. But I think even like with the jinn, like one angle to it is that for the Jannah it's ibadullah al-mu'minin, right? Like the true believers. And that can be from ins, from jinn, from creatures that we don't even know that Allah created. So I don't think it's like we can interpret it that that jinns are not going to Jannah per se. That's just my thought. But I think for with the ayah and قُلْ اللَّهُمَّ مَالِكَ الْمُلْكِ, I think that the key is to understand it is بِيَدِكَ الْخَيْرِ. And even like with scholars, they say that it's a way of in the Quran, Allah can mention one thing from like a set of duality. So by meaning بِيَدِكَ الْخَيْرِ وَالشَّرِ, both good and shar can be translated to just the opposite of good, right? We can't say evil for Allah Azza wa Jal. But even the concept of good and bad, biyadillah, it's Allah in control of that concept itself. But with the Jalali and Jamali names, I think that the whole idea is that the journey to deepen our understanding of the names. So for like Al-Jabbar as a name, when we try to understand it as an attribute and a name of Allah, that's the highest level of understanding that concept, Al-Jabbar. There's Jalali and like the majesty in it and the power, and there's the beauty, the Jamali side, the Latif side, the subtle side. And to deepen our understanding of the name, the whole journey to understand that name, it's like a whole journey. So when people use it on a human level of expression, or like Jabbar, it's a name in Arabic they call tyrants, Jababira, or someone is being a Jabbar. And that's someone who stepped up in a position of power and they are abusing that power. But Allah is above abusing a power. It's His power. Everything exists by Him. So there's no abuse there. And that's why I want to start with like the rule from the Hadith as a corner to building that idea itself, is that Allah forbidden injustice for himself. So that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's similar to me for like as like the high and low thing, right? Because like, you know, for example, like if you're in space, that's the example I used before, right? Like, you know, or a certain level of height, and you know, what's high and low, right? If you're not on Earth anymore, what you know, when it comes to fate and um, you know, where we all end up, I think we all have our own truth, right? So like, you know, uh, I think, you know, religion gets the stigma, or you know, the the surface level kind of judgment of like, oh, you have to do these things, right? Or you are doomed. But you know, we know people like standing up to our own principles, right? Or you know, never mind principles that are imposed on us, right? Like keeping true to our own self, right? Is a challenge in and of itself. So you know, what might be true for you might not be true for somebody else. You know, is another way to kind of say what I want to say, and only Allah really can like, you know, take account of all those differences, right? Of everyone's unique situation. Another way that I've thought about it is like this idea of like an eschaton, or you know that how in the Quran says innaka mayyit wa innahum lamayitun, right? Like in the Quran, Allah is referring to the Prophet ﷺ and his companions, saying in the present tense, you are dead, right? And the way I kind of understand it is that, like, you know, like how we go to sleep, right? You know, when we sleep, we call that the little death, or like how in French they call orgasm, you know, the tiny death, right? So we go through these deaths, you know, throughout our daily lives all the time, right? It's just being disconnected from truth, being disconnected from ourselves, our reality, and life is that the up and down of that path. Yeah, and only Allah can really take that into account. So the truth is relative in a sense, right? That's kind of the philosophy 101, you know, takeaway. Like, oh, the truth is relative. You can't impose your truth on me, and I think that is true. But the truth is relative to that which is absolute, to that, you know, to that greater, grander scheme of things that we can't see, that we can't understand. That's really super abstract, I know. Forgive me.
No, but I love that, and I think that's ties directly to the concept that there is nothing but Allah. Like everything else is a metaphor. Like existence itself for us is how we perceive life and existence, and that the ultimate truth that there is nothing but Allah, nothing. And that's like the whole idea with the fana, and that the highest level of uh, like spiritual elevation, or enlightenment, or to reach that level of being like a shahid to that, like a witness of that there is nothing but Allah. And how the scholars, it's a very, very hard concept to even fathom, but I think a beautiful way that I came across, that the scholars, how they describe that we exist and not exist in the same time. We are, everything is a metaphor of the power of Allah, the will of Allah. And how they describe it, or to simplify it, it's they give it the example of the like having a ball connected to a rope that is connected to a center, and then you make the ball go in a very high speed, so it will create a circle, so you can see the circle. But what is that circle? That circle is the ball being at every point of the circle and not to be. Like the ball is existing and not existing at every single point, but with that movement, it creates the metaphor of the circle. And that's what everything is. We exist and not exist at the same time. And that's like, and with that concept that everything is maintained and sustained by Allah. How they describe it, it's like everything is receiving madad from Allah, receiving pulses of the will of Allah to exist in a very high speed. And that's why we have the illusion of the continuum of being. Like, for example, right now, me talking in every, we can't even put a time unit to it, but it's the highest speed we can even imagine. I exist and not exist. But with the series of pulses of existence, I have this illusion of being alive and talking and having this experience. But the ultimate truth is there's nothing but Allah. There's nothing except Allah. And everything else is a metaphor of the will of Allah for us to exist. And I really love the concept, like the frame of thinking of movement and stillness scenario mentioned earlier. And I think that's the ultimate, like everything is moving, and that's the metaphor itself. But Allah is the constant, and Allah doesn't move. Because if something moves, it means like they are bound by space or something change to their essence. And Allah is whole and complete. But everything else is like the experience of life is through movement. So I think it's the concept of fana and the ultimate truth of that there's nothing except Allah is, it's a fascinating way to think about life. Any thought, you guys?
Yeah, lots of thoughts. I don't know exactly where to jump. I mean, we can just move.
Yes,
Oh,
sorry. At the
no,
same
go ahead.
time, we are invited to act as if we as to act as if we exist. So it's like going to this theater and there are certain rules. And this is where the names come to play in a way. And there are certain rules, and there are very sacred rules. I remember reading it somewhere. I think maybe even in Ibn Arabi's explanations, but I'm not sure. It was that when Iblis said, "You made me do this" to God, uh, he he was in a sense saying the truth. However, Adam said, you know, he accepted his fault because the essence of that was to learn adab in a way. And yeah, this is where I would stop. So maybe it's just about learning adab a bit, and learning love, while acting as we exist, even though we don't, in the absolute way.
Yeah, I think that's the ultimate lesson for me, right? Is humility. And well, yeah, there's so many different ways to look at it, but like, the one thing that I always kind of fall back on, which is what a lot of my research and a lot of, this, what inspired, these sessions and this app development, is that perception is limited, right? So like once we really start to look at the edges of meaning, right, we start to see things that seem paradoxical or that we can't explain, and that's just a reminder that we can't explain everything, right? Our perception is fundamentally limited, and I say it that way because that also implies that the limits are not like arbitrary, right? There's a pattern, and you can see that pattern a lot closer in language. You can, language kind of gives you a microscope, and also a telescope, right? You can also, like I said, with like the win-loss kind of binary versus like union and separation. Yeah, I think we can talk. We can wax philosophical about fate, and how we are ignorant and limited in our perceptions endlessly. There's always, there's so many different ways to frame that kind of idea. I mean, in the Quran, you actually have very literally, it says وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ, that you don't even desire anything, right? You don't have any mashi'a, you don't have any wants unless Allah wants you to have those wants. That's literally found in the Quran. On your question that you had before, Zanira, about the co-locations for Hakim, I think I see Aziz, or sorry, for Aziz, Hakim is the number one, like over 47 times, something like that. So Azizun Hakim, and then the next would be Rahim, Azizun Rahim, so merciful. So wise being first and merciful, then Alim. But there's also Qawiyun Aziz. So Aziz being, and that's like 7 times. And yeah, I think that's, and then also 5 times Azizun Ghafur. And I think last time we talked about Aziz, we talked about how, I don't think, yeah, so Mu'izz is, sorry, 2 different thoughts going on here. So I think last time we talked about, Aziz and Hakim, wise being paired the most with Aziz, in the sense that, like, you want your number one, right? The person that you go to, that you rely on, your rock, to also be like wise, right? To also be somebody who has some wisdom. And hikmah is a wonderful root that we'll get to at one point, but doesn't hurt to just throw a sneak peek. One of the cognates, or one of the derivatives from that root, is a hakam, I think, which is a judge, but it's also a bit that you put inside like a horse or a camel's mouth to restrain them, to restrict their movement. So I always thought that was a cool non-metaphor or metaphor or analogy or idea there.
Can
Any
I
other
say
thoughts
something
on?
about Muaz
Yeah, sure.
and Rafia?
Oh,
Yeah,
oh yeah.
so
I was gonna say something too.
so I
You
was
reminded.
thinking about like one of my favorite surahs, Surah Inshirah, where Allah says, ألم نشرح لك صدرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك. Did we not expand your chest for you and remove the burden from burden, and we removed from you your burden that was weighing down your back, and we raised for you your dhikr, your mention. And so that's the surah that I come to if like I need like a self-esteem raise. And I was thinking about like how that's really linked to Izzah, right? Like it's like because Izzah as in value, as in precious, like feeling valued. That is the effect of al-Mu'iz. That is, Mu'iz is the causer of that. And so Rafi' is linked to that by like, you know how we say in English, right? Like you were speaking, Omar, about like up and down, high and low. Like what does it mean to like be up and down? In English we say low self-esteem, high self-esteem. And yeah, that's interesting. So definitely rafa'na laka dhikrak, that Allah raised Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's mention of him. And for me that means that of course his mention is raised in the universes by him being Muhammad, the one who is always being praised consistently, constantly, abundantly. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. And yet, that doesn't mean that he himself feels good about himself, right? Like, so there's, I guess this happens a lot, like celebrities. They kind of, a lot of them have really low self esteem, even though people, like, they have Isa in terms of fame and they have Isa in terms of wealth. Isa can also mean wealth because in Surat Kahf, that's how the two people that are, you know, neighbors, there he says, وَأَعَزُّ نَفَرًا, that I have more money than you, or like I'm wealthier. And so they have money, they have fame, they have value in the eyes of people, but in their own eyes or their own dhikr for them is not raised. So that's the ayah that I come to if I need my own dhikr raised for me. Yeah, so that's how, like, for me, Rafi' and Mu'iz are linked in that God raises your mention of you to you. And there's a lot more, but I'm just gonna, yeah, leave that as an introduction.
I was
Yeah,
waiting for the connection to what I said.
yeah, yeah. I think that's a good tie to Moise actually, because I think I mentioned this before, but it bears repeating in that like not all of these names, not all the names that you find in the 99 names are directly in the Quran. So like Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, that's in there. Al-Malik is in there. Quddus, not sure. But the past Al-Khafid, Al-Rafi', so Khafid is not in there, but it's implied through a description of the Day of Judgment as Khafidlah, that which lowers. Khafidatun Rafi'ah, actually. So it gets both epithets, both descriptors as being that which lowers and that which heightens people.
Sorry, can I say something about Rafi'a?
Yeah.
About metaphor? Yeah, so you know, sorry, Khatib actually. So you know the metaphor, quote unquote, of lowering the wings, right? Like
Mm.
وَاخْفِضْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ الذُّلِّ مِنَ الرَّحْمَةِ. Lower your wings to them out of humility, and that's zil, right? So it's like that's khafad and khafad and mudil at two at once there. And yet that does not mean zil in the sense of that you were humiliated, because it's even addressed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when when Allah is telling them like be sorry him sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Yeah,
I
you're
forgot
jumping
what
ahead,
he says
but yeah. Yeah. No,
about,
that
you know, بَخْفِضْ لَهُمْ جَنَاحَ yeah, وَخْفِضْ جَنَاحَكَ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ, right? So it's like when you're in front of somebody that is really like high or like let's say Aziz, they have status, then you tend to have, you know, your shoulders, your body language, you're not probably not going to go with your chest out. But I was thinking about like this, Rafia, and like self-esteem and Aizza, because if someone's like not feeling good about themselves, they probably like their body language is probably going to be like their shoulders drooped. And if they are feeling great about themselves, they're probably going to have, you know, like more open, yeah, like shoulders up. You know, we say it even in English, shoulders up, chin up. So like that raising. Yeah, that's what.
yeah, so Mu'izz and Mudhil are, like I said, more abstract than Khafd and Rafa.
Can I say something?
Yeah,
So with Mu'izz and Mudir, my understanding to the duality of Al Mu'izz and Mudir, it's about accessibility. So it's something Allah, as through His name Al Mu'izz, give izzah to something. It's more elevated in a way that it's not easily accessible. And Mudil as a concept is something that more accessible. And even in the Quran, وَالَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ الْأَرْضَ ذَلُولًا. So Allah uses the lula is that the ard, the earth is accessible to roam around it, accessible to use it, accessible to build on it, accessible to get resources from within it, and even to like utilize it. So it's this al-mu'izz makes something that less accessible, give it more status, and mudil as a concept. It's more like I don't think about it just in the way that it's humiliate something or
it's common.
elevate something as a status.
Yeah, it's like common.
And yeah,
Yeah,
in a way, yeah, please, Mahan.
Oh no, you finish what you were saying first.
So that's what I just wanted to say, like the essence of the meaning itself. It's and then you can see a jalali side or a beauty side depending on the context of it.
Yeah, so yes, so what I was saying before is that Khafid is not in the Quran. Al-Khafid is not in the Quran, but Khafida is in the Quran, in referring to Day of Judgment. Rafi' is in the Quran. Inni rafi'uka. So Allah, so we find that a little bit more directly in the Quran. Mu'izz and Mudhil, we don't find at all in the Quran, but we find verbs, which is the key example is the one that we mentioned already for Surah, I forget the surah, but قُلِ اللَّهُمَّ مَالِكَ الْمُلْكِ. That ayah has those verbs in there for tu'iz and tudhil, right? And then also we find that so as you can see here, we don't have mu'iz in the Quran, but we have all these other words. And then dhil, right? So if we go to dhallala in the Quran, that occurs 24 times. And if we jump here and look at the graph, I think one of the words actually is a road. I think oh, that's a problem. We can just pull it up here. Yeah, one of the words, I think dhal or dhil can mean a road. This is another random thought, actually, when we were talking about like fate and stuff before. So if you're looking at your screen, so these are 4 roots that start with the and lam, right? So there's dhalaka, dhaliqa, dhalafa. I don't know, or we're just interested in dhalala, right? But on the topic of fate, I kind of think of like having your own truth is kind of like having a semantic field, right? Like, or each like roots in a way, right? Or each like, we have like a set of like dimensions to us, you can say, right? and it's different from another root, right, which might have like less dimension, like this one, for example. So the logic, the judgment, the fate of each is kind of similar to me, at least. Yeah. So yeah, I think one of these, I think dhul or dhal, yeah, refers to a road. So yeah, common, I think is kind of what Ammar was saying, like easily accessible. So not necessarily like always bad, right? Just like khaft and raf are not necessarily always good and bad too. Even izza and, well, I guess izza is always good, but dhil doesn't necessarily always have to be good.
But
And
can I say something?
of course,
Even what Ammar said about the earth, and now what she said about the road, that is kind of also like a kind of humiliation because we walk on top of the earth,
yeah,
like it's
yeah,
beneath
yeah,
our
yeah,
feet.
yeah, for
And
sure,
so,
yeah,
that's not something you would do, for example, with the Quran, because that's something that is aziz, right? So, like, that implies, um, yeah, it implies like a kind of humiliation, really, because we're on top of it. Like, and so then it goes back to also Rafra and Khaf.
yeah. Humiliation is a stronger word, but like think about it like this: like what's actually wrong with humiliation in a way, right? Like, I think the territory that we are in, talking about high and low and these like fundamental frames, is that like you can't apply good and bad anymore. Just like at a certain level of like height, you can't apply right and left. Um, so yeah, like it's necessary that it's part of existence and the reality, the plan of God, however you want to think of it, that some people are brought low and some people are brought high. But to say that one is wrong, like what, at another level, right? Like what is right and wrong either, right? Like there's no such thing as right and wrong, right? Like all it is like closeness to truth and far furtherness away from truth, right? It's like being warm and being cold. Which is something that I was thinking about earlier too, when you were talking about stillness and motion. The only thing that came to mind was like qaf, right, and like qarar, right, in Arabic, we say. But that's also associated with coolness. So like there's almost like, I'm trying to think of like how can you just like what is lack of motion, right? Like what's the word that we have for it?
Oh, I know, man.
Yeah.
It's good. Sakina.
Yeah.
It's like sukoon. It's like,
Sukoon,
there's no
sukoon, yeah.
there's no
Yeah.
haraka on it, there's no movement, but it's so
Yeah.
good. Like that's what you want to be in. Like it's أنزل الله السكينة على قلوبهم.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of words for like cessation. Like one of the oldest ones I can think of is like batal, actually. Like batala actually means to stop. But it also is a really interesting root because for many reasons, I've been trying to think about how to present this actually, but what the first time I heard it probably when I was a kid was in the intensive form. So batal, right? Batal means to stop, right? Colloquially, that's how we say it too. But then later on, as I grew up, I guess I probably also heard batil, right, in the Quran, which means falsehood. And then later on, colloquially, I would hear Egyptians say batal, right? And batal means a hero. And then like my mind at some point was like, what the heck? Like how is falsehood and a hero, like how are those the same in Arabic, right? Or they come from the same root. And so I guess I kind of reasoned it as like, the hero is the one that can stop things, right? The hero, al-batal, uh, يبطل, right? Like he can stop things, right, in their tracks, right? But really, if you think about it, or when I thought about it more recently, I realized that it's kind of just the way that falsehood is framed in Arabic is that it is that which is necessarily defeated. It is that which is necessarily stopped, and that's actually one of the oldest meanings. There is some Proto-Semitic evidence for it. And that was the earliest meaning of the word is cessation, right? To stop, for something to stop. So I thought that was really cool. That like a hero is by definition that which stops falsehood, right? And falsehood is that which is necessarily stopped in its tracks. It's necessarily false, and that's embedded in the language in a rare kind of way too, because you come across this sort of phenomenon, I think, in Arabic more often, and I kind of frame it as like a focus more on process as opposed to like substance or essence, which is kind of how we think in like Western terms or in super logical terms. I don't know how you want to frame it, but like linearly, you kind of just go from object or subject or thing. But like in Arabic, which is not really as linear, even at a substructural level, or I would call it non-concatenative. You're not building words by stacking things together the way you do in other languages. You build from the inside out. So there's more focus on like process. One of the best examples I think is like laqiya means to find, alqa form for means to throw, or leave to be found, right? So the idea is again like a process, or you're trying to frame like a general process, but but that form one, form four thing is more common, right? You find that causative, right? That's what we call it in English, right? The causative form, right? Because you're causing something, causing somebody to do something, right? So you samia, he heard, asma, right? You made someone to hear something, right? So that's more common there. But in batal, it's actually like it's in one form. It's in the infinitival form in the masdar itself, right? Batal can mean like the infinitive of like making something false, um, or it could be used as an epithet, meaning for someone to be a hero or to be the cause or the force which stops. Yeah. So
No, I love that.
yeah, it's very, very interesting. So yeah, I mean, with you can see here that like um with dhal or dhul, there's also a lot of different variations right here. You have like dhul, you have dhil, um and I think dhal or dhalla, dhul.
Sorry, I have a question
Yeah.
about batal. So I don't understand what you're saying. Is it not in the causative form, or is it, so for example, like the instances, first of all, obviously, what you said is like so accurate about, like batal being something that's like inherently bound to fail. And it's like, وَقُلْ جَاءَ الْحَقُّ وَزَهَقَ الْبَاطِلُ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا.
Yeah.
It was bound to perish. And one of the reasons for that is kind of like what I think Ammar was kind of speaking about earlier about like existence and reality. The opposite of batal is actually a name of Allah, al-Haq,
Yeah.
the name by which many Sufis call Allah. And so al-Haq actually means truth, but also means real. So by that logic, batal actually means unreal, something
Yeah.
that almost like it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So then there's this like lack of like it lacks a foundation in existence. That is batil. So anything that is not true, that is not right, that is not good, that is not aligned with God, it does not have like a reality to its existence, because everything that is real needs to derive its existence from God, from the reality. But God is not evil, so the evil does not have reality. And so I love that because that means in our cosmology there's no like equal fight between good versus evil. It's between real versus unreal. So that so the odds are always in the favor of one side over another.
Excuse me.
So yeah, the other thing is there's two contexts in which I can think of. I didn't do a corpus check, but so the first one is batal is magic. قال موسى ما جئتم به السحر إن الله سيبطله إن الله لا يصلح عمل المفسدين. When the magicians did their illusionary trick, it's not real. It's like their snakes are not real. So Musa alayhi salam said, you have brought what you brought is magic. In Allah sayubtiluhu. So isn't that a causative form? Like Allah will make it batil. Allah will make it non-existent. And the other one is that I can think of is, I mean, that's like, yeah. In the case of magic, there's other cases as well. Like what batala ma كانوا يفق. Astaghfirullah, I actually don't remember. But anyway, another verb form is batala, like it just by itself, I guess, stopped being real or like was stopped. But then the other form is in relation to sadaqat. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تبطلوا صدقاتكم بالمن والأذى. Don't cancel out almost. Like don't make batil your sadaqat by rubbing in people's faces the favors that you did on them and by
Yeah.
hurting them. So that's something that like it's also batil is also like canceling something out. Oh, I like this word, annul. In English, I guess it's like, it's like something that was never there. So like if you do sadaqah, which is something good, it's like, real. But then you can actually cancel it out as if you never did it by hurting the person that you're doing the sadaqah on, or by saying, by making it seem to them like you did such a favor on them. So yeah, I like cancel out and annul.
Yeah.
Maybe annul, because annul is like it makes it almost like it was never there, which is much more powerful because it's like yeah, it's a
Annulled.
manifestation
Yeah.
of God's power. Like, like we don't think things can actually go back in existence, right? So, but it's like an unhappening. Like you think something could be destroyed, but it's not destroying. It's not destroying. It's actually unhappening. It's like you didn't even do it to Silva. So I think, yeah. But anyway, the question was, what is your what were you saying about batala in terms of the verb form? Is it because I feel like it is used in the causative form, la tubtilu, and also inna Allah sayubtiluhu, that Allah will make it batil.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks. You reminded me of what I was getting at really, which is the idea of like movement again, like movement being like life, movement being existence, right? Like if something doesn't move, then it doesn't exist, right? And I think that that's what this root actually captures, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure there's other words, right? Like I don't know sukoon that well, but I think like eh, the idea there actually is maybe more close to like quietness, right? That or like peace than actual non-movement. And then like
But it is though. Maskan is like it's a place where you don't move, like your house. It's masakina tarbawnaha, houses that you like or places that you like. It's like a place where you stay. You're not
yeah,
moving.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like
No,
it's the opposite of a vehicle, for
As
example.
yeah, and sukun the main like the straight forward meaning is stillness.
yeah. Stop.
And I just wanted to say like that's a beautiful insight, Zinar, like with the bottle that it doesn't exist. It's not like part of the reality. That's I really love that.
Yeah. So
Thanks. My teacher taught me that, but
Yeah, it's
yes.
just an amazing insight.
Yeah, yeah. It is really because it really kind of like highlights the power of that root, right? That
Yeah.
like non-movement. When you don't have movement, I mean, I'm sure there are some exceptions, but the idea of non-movement or cessation being linked with like falsehood, I think makes a lot of sense. To answer your question, so sometimes Form 1 and Form 4 are pretty much the same. So like, and that's the other thing is that like I don't really think in terms of like the Western linguistic framework of like causative, right? And like or like transitive. Transitivity, obviously, but I didn't mean transitive. I meant like reflexive or like even passivity. Like passivity is kind of like we just think about these things a little bit differently in Arabic. So in Arabic, um, we don't really call we call it mutawa, right? Like form 4 af'ala, mutawa, mutawa tafa'ala, right? So like it follows logically from, you know, that's kind of what it means, but sometimes it's the same thing. So like batala, right, can mean to like it in its simple sense, it just means to make something false or make something, you know, not true, or call something false, right? So form 1 and form 4 are the same here, but batal, um, it can be the infinitive form of that, right? It can mean like batal shay, right? Like, you know, the act of making something false, right? But it can also be an epithet. It can also be a title for somebody. Batal as like the force that makes things false, right? So it's like, you know, you can think of it as like a metaphor if you want, right? Like, you know, and there's actually Lane, he actually makes an interesting note. He says that this morphology being an epithet is rare, and the only other case is Hasan. Usually, I think, like, for the form that's more common for epithets or for titles is fa'al, right? So like fah, or um, uh, I can't think of any more, but or I mean also fa'id, right? So like Hakim, um, Aziz, Habib, right? Those are more common for epithets, but the fa'al form is uncommon, and Lane says you only find it in Hasan and in Batal. So that's interesting, and usually
Wait,
rare
there's something
morphology.
else that's yeah. So you know you have Sakana here, and it just reminded me. A few days ago, Israel hit our country with like 10, 11 missiles. It was horrible. Alhamdulillah, ala kulli hal. But 5 people were martyred. So like we've, you know, with the shuhada, I've been hearing these like this dua, right? Allah marhamhum and وأسكنهم فسيح جنات. And so it's like, this is so interesting because it says here sakana, right? And it's like sakana means to like almost can mean to stop even, or it can even mean like a letter on which there's sukun, so that means it's not flowing, there's no movement there, there's no vowel. But then askin or sakana, like, you know, to live in a specific place, that means you just live there, you're stopped there. But then askin is so interesting because it's like, what is it? Is it is it flow or is it stop? Like, is it flow or is it a stillness? Because it's a causative. It's saying God make them live, or but like God make them stay in your, you know, jannats. But yeah, so it's like partly like on God's part, it's movement, and I guess it kind of also reminds me of it's I would say it's kind of a synonym, but not obviously not fully a synonym, but it's like aqimus salat. Um, because qiyam is also like staying, right? Like maqam is also a place that you stay at. Muqim is also a person, like sukkan, for example, is people that reside. And then I think,
Yeah.
or something, but yeah, muqimin are also people that reside. So it's like residents. And so that's like people that are stationary. But then, and Allah says, aqimus salat. Like it's, I mean, it's usually translated as establish, but it's like make the
Establish.
prayer stand. Literally, it's like make the prayer stand. Or yeah, so it's so interesting because it's like it is an action, right? Because like prayer is flow and we're doing something, so it is a movement, but at the same time it's like keep doing it, so it's not like don't like waver in the prayer, you know, like pray all of them. So in that sense it's like you're staying in prayer. So it's like this duality, like paradox almost with aqimu and askin.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I don't know if anyone just saw what I had on the screen here. I mean, I always wondered, what does sakina have to do with
If you
sukoon?
run it on somebody's throat, they stop moving. I think that's
Yep,
what it has to do with it.
yep, yeah. I never
Actually,
really.
at first they move a lot, triggered from all the Eid al-Adha viewings. But yeah, but then eventually it stops moving. They stop moving. The animals.
Thank you for the vivid imagery. But yeah,
You're
actually,
welcome. You participate in it, so you should know about it. It's fine. You shouldn't be triggered.
no, not at all. But what's interesting actually is the form sikin has the form fa'id, which is a rare form, but it's similar to like other forms. Like fa'al is a form that's commonly used for tools, so makes sense. I think Lane has it here as like that which brings quietness or to the animals or something like that. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting just to kind of think about like non-movement in general.
And sakina in Arabic it's used even like in a scientific way. Sukun for the stillness. Like even in physics and chemistry, it's used like they would describe it as sukun. Something being in chemistry, something being inactive or non-activated, or like a, like a substance that is um, in physics too, in movement and thermodynamics and sukun. And
Wow, that's
also
so
like
interesting. So, what would you say? What would you say is the opposite of that in that context? In Arabic.
متحرك, because they even
Oh,
is like a عدم
it's kind of
الحركة
like the
is
grammar.
سكون. It's not even
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's the same is true
Yeah, it's like
in the
harakat
grammar
and
too. Yeah,
sukun.
harakat. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. One of my favorite phrases actually is "fil haraka baraka." In movement,
And I,
there's blessing. Yeah, or some
yeah, we
people
say
say
that
it the
in
other way
Urdu as
around.
well.
Oh,
Harkat
yeah.
mein barakat.
Oh
I
really?
hate it
Yeah. You can
because
also
you
say
can't be lazy
"harak."
apparently.
El baraka
You always
haraka.
have to be doing things.
Yeah, you can also say
yeah.
it the other way. El baraka haraka. I've heard somebody say it that way, and I was like, oh, that actually, you know, that's actually more true. I think, right? El baraka haraka, and then
I
saying
think it is because I think baraka means to grow. So like literally it means like to grow, like to have increase. So that implies some sort of like, movement. Maybe even
I think
upward movement. Like you're supposed to say Allahumma barik when you see someone have
bar-
something good. That means like
baraka
God should
actually
grow it.
baraka actually means something else. Baraka actually is the verb that's used for a camel, um, to sit.
I'm sure
So
it's used for it.
yeah, it's kind of funny. But I always made the joke about the fact that like in colloquial, I don't know if in Sudanese, I'm sure you Sudanese say it too. Like we say baraka arabiya, right? Like we say park the car. Yeah, but we use the word barak, right? Barak. I mean, I always thought it was actually just a bastardization of English, like because we don't have P's, so we say barking, right? Like that.
Yeah.
But I think I think it comes from the barika, right? Which means for a camel to sit down.
بركة, بركة
Yeah,
الجمل,
yeah, yeah,
بركة الناقة.
yeah.
We use it in Sudanese. أبرك, it means like
Ubruk.
to
Oh,
sit
right.
down.
Yeah. Ubruk. But do you also say but like baraka al-arabiya, or do you use a different word?
No,
Oh, okay. What do you guys say?
we like from English German. It's بركن العربية.
Barking? Oh, so yeah, maybe it's the same thing Egyptian. I don't know. Barak. Yeah, I don't know.
لكن يبرك الجمل.
Yeah, Brooke and Jamal.
أبرك. Sudanese we say like it's even like a very old way of like a Sudanese dialect is to أبرك. I
Yeah.
mean to sit on the ground. Like you can't
Yeah.
use it to like sit on a chair or sit anywhere else. To sit on
Right.
the ground is أبرك.
We say
Cool.
that Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad.
صلى الله عليه وسلم.
Mubarak. Yeah. Yeah, I think they associated baraka with like camel sitting because I forget exactly, but like camels have two knees, right? So like when a camel, also that like yeah, I think it's
I
also that
think we have two names too.
what?
But
I think you meant something else. You have to frame that another way.
It's
I know what you
because
mean, but we have two meanings.
yeah, so I think the idea, I mean, it looks like it's a proto word, so it looks like there's some proto evidence that it just means to bless in general. But one explanation that I've heard is that because the camels were such a blessing for Arabs as well, being desert dwellers. But like even in the simple fact that like they're very tall, very big animals, but they have two knees so that they can lower themselves to your level. So that idea of like something being like lowered to you, like brought down to you, I think it's present in the idea of like baraka as blessing, but also in the literal like um, kneeling of a camel, as you see here in Lane. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think it's because it's the combination or like blessing, baraka, the blessing, and in the same time for all these blessings and increase as a concept to settle down, to actually be blessed, to have that baraka settle down into something.
yeah. I mean, it's a blessing to have somewhere to sit for sure.
This is used in the Quran for, first of all, for Masjid al-Aqsa. I think الأرض التي باركنا حولها. And for Musa alayhi salam, where بورك من في النار ومن حولها. So he's blessed. I mean, yeah, the person who's in the fire and who's around it is blessed.
Yeah. Can just take a look real quick at Corpus. "32 times in the Quran, 8 times."
Wait, I can't see it. I can't see the corpus
Oh, sorry.
on the screen.
Yeah, Tabarak. We say a lot Mubarak, obviously. Any more thoughts on? I mean, I think that covers Mu'izz and Mudid really. Can see if there's anything we missed in the root or Dallala. Yeah, I mean, I think we mentioned both the Jalali and the Jamali aspects of this root.
I
Any
did
other
have a
thoughts?
couple of thoughts, but I'm getting imposter syndrome, so I don't know. I feel, I don't know.
No, I mean,
But just say it. We're all just saying stuff. It's not that deep.
yeah, it's totally fine. I mean, we're just hanging out.
Well, one of them was what Amar was talking about with Mozilla, like, and Moz, like being about accessibility. And it's like accessibility, it's also accessibility for us. Like when I've noticed, like for my own state, but like I think this is kind of like a general thing that when we are granted Izza in some way, like it can become kind of, it can get to a point beyond which you start to kind of lose yourself a little bit, or you just become like you enter a state where you become more susceptible to like more negative things starting to kind of latch onto you. Whereas when you are in a state of like will, it's an opportunity for you to kind of reset. And I was thinking about like zilla as like humiliation, but it's like humiliation only kind of like, I was thinking about like what even is humiliation. And a lot of the times it's like what we perceive, right? Like we feel humiliated, maybe from like an egoic perspective, or it's we perceive humiliation like someone has been humiliated, like, but it's us perceiving it as such and then saying that. but it's like for us, like accessibility, like when we receive Izzah, like it's making us access things like with greater ease in the world. But it's like in terms of like spirituality, sometimes like especially when the Izzah is coming in like a material sense, like it kind of can distance us from like like spiritual goodness. But then when it comes to like Villa, like it sometimes it's making us more accessible to what's on the ground, even though it's bringing us closer to the ground, and it's bringing us closer to like a sense of like kind of lack, in way to perceive. But it's like the more grounded we are, it's kind of like it's a way for us to reset ourselves, and instead of like seeing it as humiliation, like it's kind of Allah's way of making it accessible to us again, the ability to kind of reset ourselves. And then he's at-Tawwab and he's al-Ghafur, and like his door is always open. So it's like it's not when he lowers a person, or even like if someone really has done something bad and then they are humiliated accordingly, like it's a way from Allah's mercy for that person to kind of return to like their senses, and to like regather like goodness about themselves, or kind of like to remember Allah. um so that was like one thing. And then I was like kind of related to this, I was also thinking about how everything in reality, like it's from the point that we were making of how nothing is really like real, and reality is kind of just like it's a matter of perception, but it's like our limited perception. But everything is kind of like the locus for that, and the reference point for everything, and what everything returns to is Allah, right? It's his hikmah and everything, it's his story. And for us, it's a privilege to be able to experience that. And that's what we were kind of created to do, is to like experience it, and to like remember, and to find him in it. And it's beautiful that we were given free will within that, for us to then want things or choose certain paths. But in reality, none of those paths and none of those things are actually real. And the point is not so that we can like it's not even that it's like something silly or something that is an illusion. Like our thoughts, our energetic field, everything has the potential to create our realities. So we can like really live in that state, and we have to be careful about that. But we're given that power. But at the same time, it's like you're also not meant to like want only the world and nothing else. And so it's like our free will can sometimes stand in the way of us like recognizing Allah's like hikmah, or to be able to experience things in the way that we're meant to experience them. And that's kind of where pain comes in, like where we really want something for ourselves and then it doesn't happen because Allah knows better for us. And then we feel that we experience that pain because we were attached to certain outcomes, or certain things, that like certain goals, or certain wants, or certain like things that we perceived as needs. And wait, I think I'm losing my train of thought. Wait. Oh god.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect, really. But yeah,
Yeah.
continue if you still have it.
Wait, what did I just say? It's our privilege to experience anything at all. And the fact that yeah, no, I think I lost it. If I remember, I'll like type in the chat or something.
Yeah, no, but I mean that was perfect, because I think like that's that really kind of captures the thing, the contrast between these names, right? Is that like it's not necessarily wrong or bad. It reminded me of like one of my favorite Sheikh Sha'rawi. He became very famous for his talks in Egypt, and in Egypt, and he disliked the fame so much so that he felt like he needed to break his nefs, right, or break his ego, and he would go and he would clean the public bathrooms in the mosques in Egypt. So yeah, I think that for me captures kind of what you're saying. um uh, or worship salah is another way to kind of characterize that, right? Because like when we put our head to the ground in our lowest possible physical states, that's actually our highest spiritual states, right? So like the lowliness is good for us in many ways. um And of course you have, the phrasing in the Quran, وَخْفِضْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ الذُّلِّ مِنَ الرَّحْمَةِ, in reference to parents, right? Like, lower unto your parents the wing of humility out of mercy, right? So, like, you lower your status, make yourself common, make yourself accessible, right? In the frame that we just used, make yourself available to your parents. Don't be so like high and high and mighty, and like don't be Aziz too, I guess, in a way, and separate yourself from your parents, or be difficult for your parents to reach, and inaccessible, and don't do that out of like low self-esteem, or out of a low sense of worth, or out of thinking that your family, or sorry, that your parents are better than you or higher status. You do it out of mercy, right? That's what the whole ayah says, right? Lower the wing of humility out of mercy. Do it out of mercy to your parents. So it's good to be humiliated sometimes, I guess, right? It's good to be um it reminds me of like a Latif, right? The name of Allah, Al Latif, right? The subtle, right? Because sometimes you do need a little like kick in the butt, right? Sometimes you do need a little like dirt on your nose, to kind of I don't know, not put you in your place, but like, yeah, I guess put you in your place, or just remind you, or you can't always be up, right? And it's fil haraka baraka, right? There's movement in blessing, or blessing is movement, however you want to think of it, right? So you got to keep moving, whether it's up or down. Yeah, I think that's all I have on, at the moment, at the on Waizen Mudil. We can look ahead real quick to next names, unless anybody has other thoughts. But it is kind of curious, actually, because it's Samia, right? Samia is the next name, Samia and Basir. So the all hearing and the all seeing coming after these, like, I guess you could say three pairs, right? Like, since we did Alim, the all knowing, which is usually how these are. Samia and Alim, right? Basir, I don't know if Basir is paired with Alim, but Alim, Samia, Basir, those are related usually. But in between them, we have Qabid, Basit, Khafid, Rafi', Mu'izz, Mudhil, which is interesting sequencing. I really got to find some more research on like the sequencing of this list, because I want to know who did it. And then I've heard like other songs. Like, I heard one the other day with like a bunch of different names that are not in this list, but like a bunch of different orderings as well. So it's very curious. I mean, like the first 20 or so, or I guess first 11, we said those are taken directly from the Quran in order, and then the rest are not. But yeah, any thoughts on why Samia, all hearing and all seeing, coming after these these pairs of names relating to high and low? Or should we just tack it on for next week, inshallah?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Khair, inshallah. Yeah, I think that's a good place to pause then. All right, jazakumullah khair, everyone. Shorter and sweeter session than our 5-hour marathons, maybe. Yeah, jazakumullah khair, everyone. And as always, feel free to continue the conversation in the chat. I should have some cool updates soon, and this list will be cooler as well. If anybody has any thoughts on this real quick, actually, I'm going to add another column here that shows how many times the root appears in the Quran. And then I think Homa Abashi was saying it would be cool if we had like the number of the abjad number. So I think I can add that. and then maybe I'll add like most common collocation, so we can see things like Samio and Alim and stuff like that. But if anyone has any other thoughts, any other frequencies that we could do something like, which surah do you find this root in the most? That could be another idea I just thought of. But yeah, khair, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair, everyone, and until next time, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.